Hey everybody, welcome to the Sim Hanger. My name's Mark. Thank you very much for watching. And let's get started by having a look at this wonderfully tactile device. It's the Garmin 1000 from FlightSimBuilder. Are you tired of fumbling about with your mouse trying to turn that small dial or press that tiny button? Well, no longer. Put a physical device directly in your cockpit. It's compatible with Microsoft Flight Simulator and X-Plane, and it's a 2-for-1 deal if you like, because it can operate separately both as your primary flight display and also as your multifunction display. My thanks to Flight SimBuilder for providing me with review copies. Now, with a product like this, if you're used to spending hours or days trying to configure the item, trying to get it to work and kick some life into it, and feeling all the stress and frustration that brings, well, you're not going to suffer that problem with this. Installation is simple and it just works. FlightSimBuilder have provided the products to the channel on a no obligation basis. Therefore, all opinions and views are purely my own. I've previously done a review on their GNS 530-430 unit, which I liked and use on a regular basis, linked to that video below. There are a number of phrases used by content creators, such as plug and play and game changer, that are all too often abused and overused. Well, in my opinion, on this occasion, both apply. They truly are plug and play, and when using one or two of these devices in conjunction with, say, your yoke and throttle quadrant, well, you've basically got a full cockpit. You hardly ever need to go fumbling with the mouse again. FlightSimBuilder products are aimed at the enthusiast and those looking to nudge up their flying and simulation experience to the next level, and will appeal to those looking for a physical, tactile feedback. These products are not inexpensive. We'll come to detailed pricing later, but a G1000 unit will cost you about the same as a 4070 or 3080 GPU. Nonetheless, their pricing is 25 to 40% cheaper than most competitor products. And at the end of the day, you are getting value for money. The overall feeling is of quality and immense attention to detail. That extends from the packaging through to the unit itself. On the back is power supply, HDMI port, and a USB port. The outer casing is made of a hardened rigid plastic, with the front fascia being an exact copy of the real G1000 unit. There's twin rotary dials with push-button action, and you can feel the notches as you turn the dials. The buttons themselves are rubberized and of a very high quality. These units are, of course, in effect a small monitor with a capacity for a number of different resolutions, the default being 1024 by 768. With the unit you get a power supply. The power supplies provided will again depend on your location, specified at the time of ordering. You also get a USB-B to standard USB for direct connection to your computer, and a display cable HDMI to HDMI. HDMI to DisplayPort adapters can be used if you don't have enough ports on your GPU. As an optional extra, you can order a stand for your G1000 unit. This is at an additional cost and is held in place by these simple plastic lugs. The stand itself is all metal and quite a heavy beast actually. Options for panel mounting, and underneath are a number of holes pre-drilled to allow for fixing to your yoke or throttle quadrant, such as honeycombs Alpha or Bravo. I have tried that, but it does place the units fairly high, requiring you to raise your monitor fairly substantially, so again it's a matter of personal preference. The unit fits into the frame very quickly and easily. There's a nut and bolt in each corner. The bolt is simply removed, plastic bracket slotted in place and then held fast by the bolt, thereby holding it firmly and securely in place. Simple but very effective. I'll leave a link to the FlightSimBuilder G1000 product page in the notes below this video. Prices shown are in US dollars, as FlightSimBuilder is based in the States, and if you're based in the UK, and as we're no longer part of the EU, duties apply, as well as VAT, so in terms of delivered prices, treat the US dollar price as the pound price, excluding shipment costs, or thereabouts, subject to variances in exchange rates. The website includes helpful video, how-tos, and a link to the small download required to run the G1000. The way it works is quite straightforward. Before starting the sim, start the FlightSimBuilder launcher, making sure your unit is powered and connected, and it will auto-detect the unit or units. It's the same software for the GNS and the G1000 units. If only one is connected, it'll default to the PFD or primary flight display, as indicated on screen. If you preferred it to be the MFD, the multifunction display, rather than the primary flight display, change the mode on the device, disconnect and reconnect the USB, and the mode will change. And we can see that will be indicated on screen, MFD, OK. For Microsoft Flight Simulator, that's it. It's auto-configured itself. One thing to note is as the unit is seen as an additional monitor, as it is connected to your GPU and will need to pop out screens and drag them to that monitor, it's a good idea to know exactly where that monitor is positioned, and of course you can change the position to suit your personal preference. In this example, my Gigabyte 34-inch ultra-wide screen is attached, shown as monitor 1. One G1000 unit is attached and is shown as monitor 2. In this instance, I'm using the NVIDIA control panel. Once you're happy with the position, select apply, then yes, and monitor 2's position is now fixed. In Sim, we now have to pop out the relevant panel. I've chosen the MFD. To pop out a panel, it's right Alt or Alt Gran plus left mouse click. Because I've previously positioned this panel, it's automatically gone to its last position. However, for you on the first attempt, it'll pop out on your main display, then drag it, remembering the position of your extra monitor, to that monitor, and then Alt-Enter to make it full screen, and you're done. Let's now jump into Sim, and we can see the G1000 in action. For this test, I'm in the Cessna Skyhawk, the G1000 model of course. Filming something like this is very difficult indeed. Both were filmed simultaneously, then the physical device edited and overlaid on the sim screen to allow for accurate comparison. The filming was done on my iPhone, but perhaps what it doesn't highlight is how clear and crisp the numbers and letters are on the physical device, as well as the accurate color reproduction. So you'll have to take my word for it. We're looking at the PFD of course, and I'm just adjusting the heading. And what is immediately apparent is just how quick the response is in Sim. It's next to instantaneous. There's no significant lag or delay. And in terms of usability, if it's functional in Sim, well then it's functional on the FlightSimBuilder G1000 unit. Here I'm just testing various buttons and functions, autopilot on and off. To set the altitude you have the inner and outer knob. The inner knob changing in thousands and the outer knob changing in hundreds. Just as we're able to change the nav frequencies, we can change the comm frequencies just as easily, and then swap the active channel as needed. Although you'd normally bring up the flight plan on your MFD, just like the real unit, you can pull it up on the PFD, enter data, change direct to, and so on. Between the PFD and MFD, there's very little that you can't do or see, such as your speed, barometer set, altitude, squawk, and so much more. One very neat feature is you're able to adjust the backlight intensity for the buttons on the unit by simply turning the knob here. You can turn the light completely off or make it very bright to suit your preference. The configurations used for the G1000 are pulled directly from the sim. The developer himself is very active, so you don't have the fear of the unit becoming unusable following an update. Still using a single G1000 and still in the Cessna, I've now switched to the MFD. And I would guess if most people just purchased one of these units, this would likely be their choice. The MFD allows us to monitor our engines, PNTs, have access to our flight plan, map, and navigational data, as well as still allowing us to control the autopilot, altitude, heading, and so on. And just like the PFD, it's a one-to-one match. And if you prefer to enter your flight plan manually using the Garmin device, well, this physical device makes it so much quicker and easier to do exactly that. With something like this, one question immediately springs to mind. With pop-out windows, what's the impact on your FPS? Well, once again, we're in the Cessna, departing Princess Juliana. This was a very short test, takeoff from the airport, which is normally FPS heavy, then a right bank over the coastline. These tests are designed to be indicative only and not set in stone. My settings are a mixture of ultra and high, and you need to bear in mind I have a 4090 graphics card, so your results may vary, depending on your CPU, GPU, and of course where you're flying. This is one of the handcrafted airports, with a reasonable amount of detail both at the airport and in the immediate surrounds. Here I am effectively running 3 monitors as opposed to 1. With one G1000 attached, the impact for me was 5 FPS or about 8%. And with 2 G1000s, the impact was 11 FPS or something in and around 16%. You of course can do your own tests, you don't need the G1000 for that. Simply pop out the windows and move it to another monitor, and the result circa will be more or less in the same ballpark as what you'd get with the G1000. Overall, I must say, and I accept it may be because of the GPU, but I was very impressed with how little impact the multi-monitor setup had on my system. I then decided, using both G1000s, one as primary flight display and the other one as the multifunction display, to put in a flight plan and take it out for a quick test. And I must say it worked very well indeed. I didn't really need to see the cockpit, so I got a more arguably realistic view, just looking over the top of the dash as it were, and managed the flight using the G1000s. This time I'm in the Beechcraft G36. It was very much a different feel, and I'd say I was more situationally aware, spent more time looking at my instruments than out the window, which is what a pilot would do in the real world in an IFR condition. Now of course these monitors are meant for the 2-glass pop-out panel, but I also experimented with popping out other panels and moving them on the monitor. This one's my weight and fuel, for example. And on that note, it rounds out my first look at the G1000 panels. I'll follow this video up at a later date with a full flight, but I'll probably choose something like the Kodiak or something similar. FlightSimBuilder were very kind enough to provide 2 G1000s for this review, but please stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe, as at some point in the future, not quite sure of the timings yet, but I'm going to be giving away one of these G1000 panels to one of my subscribers. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up, it helps the channel. Thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you found it useful and informative. Stay well, look after yourselves, see you again soon, and bye for now.